Hello, it's Monday, July the 13th, and you are watching the Botten and Klumm show live.
Hello, and if you're here for the first time, we want to tell you that our show is really designed to get digital out of the basement. We're having wonderful guests each week, twice a week, from the digital community. Kai and I are both colleagues, and we've traveled the world together as proud members of the AXWAY Catalyst team. And we want to combine that kind of experience and thought leadership with some of the experience and thought leadership of our fantastic guests.
So fantastic guests. This time we've got a fantastic guest, but Brian, before we have to talk about the fantastic guest from last time, super successful.
That's right. That was really our the first guest we've had who actually was a founder of a startup, of successful startup, Name Switch. That was Cécile Mazoué. And we really uncovered what it's really like to do that, the challenges, and it was just a really enlightening. I've always been inspired by Cécile for her, innovation, determination, and so it was great to talk to her. And really, we ended up talking about really what makes that fantastic product experience combined with being able to do it digitally, right, and helping make people's lives better. That's really what it's all about.
So we're talking about digitalization. So we got digitalized. So maybe you've seen all these photos I posted from my setup here in Zurich, Switzerland to bring out this show. For the last 13 shows, I had this whole bunch of machinery in here. And I actually sacrificed my living room. There was no dining table anymore, but we just made it happen. And now I just realized when we were on the campus party, an international campus party, and presented a show like this, we used technologies called StreamYard. And this really convinced me that we should try it as well. So I took the weekend and just took it all down. Now I've got a living room, I've got a dining table again with a fantastic lamp on top of it. I love it. And I'm using this lightweight setup that I can set up in 5 to 10 minutes, and we've got the same quality. I love it. But the guest. Today we've got Sandro Giuliani, who's actually my neighbor here in Zurich, Switzerland. And we were talking very often about his former position, but now he did something really, really amazing, and he will talk about this. Say hello to Sandro Giuliani.
Hello, ciao.
Hello, Sandro.
Good to see you.
Welcome, Sandro.
Virtual basis. Hi, I'm Brian.
So it's so cool to have you here. So you've been the CEO of the Jacobs Foundation for a long time, and so we've been talking outside on the street about whatever happens, what I'm doing, what you're doing, and then at a certain point I just saw a position switch on LinkedIn, and this sounds so fantastic. I'm going to read it out loud. You are the executive director of the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator. This sounds so crazy. What is this? And this is new.
It's great. I just want to say before you answer, I think it's wonderful that you guys talked as neighbors. I lived in some places, I won't mention London, where people just don't talk to each other, right?
Yep.
And if you do talk to them, it's like, oh, why is this person talking to me? So I just think it's fantastic that you guys, we're talking to each other, and now here you are on the show.
Yeah. Well, our kids play together, so we need to talk while they play.
That's cool.
We don't want to. We need to.
No, we're forced. No, first of all, thanks for inviting. Great to be in your show. And I've seen your living room transformed. So good to see that it's also working on with the light digital touch version.
Yeah.
So I'm working with the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator, which it's a complex word, but basically it says all. It's based in Geneva. It is trying to anticipate future science developments, future technological developments in information technology, in biotechnology, in planetary technologies, and then try to set up new forms, diplomacy forms, new governance forms, new multilateral forms to steer these technologies in a positive way for humankind. And the reason that this is in Geneva is, well, Geneva is the second biggest UN spot. So you have New York, and then comes Geneva as the main operation spot of the United Nations systems. You had many interesting initiatives coming from Geneva, the CERN, the ICRC, and the Switzerland asked themselves, what could we do as a next step for Geneva to bring out Geneva in a third innovation cycle? And the Swiss government came up with the idea to try to position this science diplomacy institution in Geneva. And I'm one of the 4 executive directors, so I'm not the only one, but one of the lucky 4 that try to come up with something meaningful.
The lucky 4.
Yeah. You landed a great job. It's interesting that the Geneva, as you say, as a center of people who are forward thinking, the center of science. You mentioned CERN. It seems like there's a concentration of people. Would you call yourselves futurologists, or is it beyond futurology, would you say?
I would say futurology is at the start, at the inception phase, because that's the anticipation word. So we try to anticipate the future and the technological development of the future. So this is the futurologist part. But usually foresighting, futurologist, anticipation ends as a think tank trying to map it. And the whole idea about Gesta is that we transform a think tank into a do tank. That once we have spotted the future developments, that we try to come up with the right solutions, or societal solutions, engaging private sector, engaging especially the governments in trying to steer these technologies. So we are a third, maybe half or a third, we are futurologists, but we try to go beyond that.
Interesting. So that's what why you've got the word anticipator in there. You're always trying to be that, several steps ahead. And it's quite tough for humans to do that. I think we'll talk a little bit about that. But I've already taken away a key quote. All of our guests come on and just blow me away with these fantastic terms. Do tank. That's a great one. I'm gonna be taking that one away with me. So giving you full credit, of course.
We've been experiencing a lack of outcomes from all the think tanks around the world. We see how the world is dealing with the pandemic. Nobody ever thought out in upfront scenarios, how will we do it? And the proximity that this happens, something like this small little microns, big virus, this can happen tomorrow and over the day after tomorrow, and we've got no procedures here. So think tanks, do tanks, this is Amancio already says on the comments this he loves the think tank and do tank. Amancio Buza, he was a guest on our show before. So this,
no, I think this is key, because it's not just anticipating the science or the technology. We also need to anticipate the future form of working together, collaborating together, and setting up governance structures, because our global governance structures are not shaped, were shaped 60, 70 years ago, and they were very effective at that time. But I think we need to ask ourselves, are they right now the most effective governance institutions we need to steer the upcoming future technological developments? And at least the question should be out there, and we might come up with other ways to try to do this more inclusive, more participatory, more agile.
So Amancio just wrote this. I'm going to show it here. Kind of futurologist and stakeholder management. So this, we're always talking about stakeholder management all the time, because who to talk to, identify the groups that are really important to talk to. Otherwise, you are reactive again. And so what you're currently doing, this sounds so super exciting, because you're doing it at such a high level. And I think well-funded, or you're still working on the funding or something like that to make it just big, to have a scenario, a strategy, how to let it grow. I love it. So one thing you mentioned on, I think it was your webpage, is that you're going to identify labs all around the world working on the future of science.
Yeah.
And this sounds so exciting. What's the idea behind this?
Well, the key question is, if you want to anticipate, you first need to see who are the people really working closest to to the breakthrough science or to the next generation of technologies. And these are the people in the research labs. So these are the people that are currently in their research laboratories figuring out a new way to set up a quantum computing setting or a biocomputing, or that are looking into new forms of germline gene editing or whatever kind of new technologies that will transform our future. So we need to identify these people, these top level researchers, and we do this through our two top research institutions in Switzerland. We have with the ETH in Zurich and the EPFL in Lausanne. We have two of the top 10 European universities, and they are kind of our hubs. And through them, we reach out to the global, in the US, in the UK, in Asia, in Africa, to the research institutions to see who is working on these topics, what is not yet publicized, what is really cooking in the lab. We call it the cooking in the lab phase, and try to collect it. So our way, we are not clever to do it. We are not the ones knowing it. We try to compile and to bring together the people that have the front side information, that are really at the forefront of advanced technologies. And then we map it, we bring it together. And then is the point that your colleague was writing in about the stakeholder management. Once we have mapped it, we reach out to the governments, we reach out to the UN organizations, we reach out to the private sector, to the WEF-like organizations, to the philanthropy actors. This is the link back to Jacob's, to the civil society, to artists, to youth groups, to see who would like with us together to see how these technologies could be shaped and driven in a positive way for humankind. So the stakeholder management phase will be super important, I would say, starting from fall onwards.
Yeah, that is so important. I mean, Kai will tell you, we talk to organizations all the time about their technology strategy and merging that with the business, because really business and technology models have converged. That's one of the main messages. And as you say, if you're not moving the way you're working and the way your organization is structured and arranged, then you're not going to be able to do this successfully. And it seems to me that your organization could very well be placed to help both in the private sector and in driving the funding of public policy, of how things get prioritized. Because there are a lot of challenges. We're faced with so much. Obviously, there's the one that's hitting everybody square in the face right now. That's a lot. Many of us, are thinking about nothing else. But there are lots of challenges that your organization seems well placed to be able to tell one from the other. What are some of the challenges? Because I think you said, we were talking beforehand, you're already thinking ahead. So thinking of things that are currently staring us in the face isn't really enough. So what are some of the challenges then that you guys are looking at?
So we are just at the starting point, but maybe just to frame it a bit, one, for us, a key question will be, what will it be to be human in future? So who are we as human beings? At the moment where with nanotechnologies, with biotechnologies, with Cogno, so the human brain and the brain-machine interface, what would it be to be human in future when we are somehow linked to machines and to robots? So when do we define that humans start and humanity ends? So I think this is a key question, really concerning us as people. The other question is how are we living together and collaborating together in a world where you have avatars running around, where you're in an augmented or virtual reality, and you maybe have hard time to separate the virtual world from your physical world. So what does this mean for collaborating and in setting up joint endeavors? And the third one is on the planetary question, of course. How can we find a way to deal with our resource needs in harmony with what the planet can offer? And this is the third level of questions we ask. So we really try to steer it through this people, person-centered, society-centered, and planetary-centered levels.
So the fun thing when you mentioned robots in future, and so I had immediately a comment from Suresh, and so I'm going to show you the comment. He's futurologist and he is a forward thinker. You will love him. So actually he comes for dinner tonight. So maybe there's a chance if you make your way from Geneva. So just to meet him, I'm going to show what he says. Digital diplomacy starts at kindergarten, and this is in a new contemporary normal for a modern society. Who says no to transformation? Replace them with unique talents. I love this technology.
No, and I think the question is there exactly, and we need to find a way to involve kids and youth, because it's about who are the future users and who are the future people running and living with the technologies, who are the people being affected by the technologies. It's the kids, because they are still in the developmental phase. So it's really key also to see a way how to engage and involve the perspective and the thinking of the children and youth. So this is a long way to go, but this is at least an ambition we have as an organization.
Do you think, Sandro, that, it's pretty obvious that COVID-19 has forced people to think about the structures and the way that education is delivered and provided for our children. Does it seem inevitable that old way you mentioned, trying to do all of this, this future anticipation with the current structures that we have, and they're just not possibly good enough for that? Does that mean that the future of education inevitably will change in the way that it's delivered and thought of?
Well, I think the question is that we need to ask ourselves, what is the key competence that we need to make sure that our kids learn and then have? And at the end, it's not so much technological. Because this can all be enhanced in future. If you are linked, if you have a strong human-computer interface link, I think it's not really about the question, what do you know? It's much more about how do you navigate morality-wise in the societies. So I think the question about morality education, about ethical education, about having a compass that goes back to the question, the three questions I mentioned: who are we, how are we going to live together, and how are we living in coexistence with our planet? I think that will be much more important in future than the sheer technological aspects, because I think this will be learned through drinking the milk at the baby stage. So I think it's much more important to go into the morality question and the ethical question.
I love that you bring it up, because, Sandro, you know that I'm a front runner when it comes to democratic or alternative schools, because we actually had chatted often about these different school models like Sudbury Valley or something alike that are just turning everything upside down. So just to enable students to deal with data at the end, with all this, is not accumulating something anymore that has to be just repeated. This is our old school system, and I think we need lots of more, and even the universities. Coming back to the universities, there's always, if there is something from the government or done by the government, there's always a strong hook to the universities. I know, of course, this again, it's you need this to have this funding and this awareness, but everything else, and you mentioned it before, that you will talk to artists and you will talk to whatever other philosophers, of course, super important. There are many more people out there who can really help you and to make this happen and to make it bigger. And currently I'm thinking about the current state. This is new. Now it's a think tank, and to get it into the moment, into the doing, this will be the hard part, and I would love to help there in any way.
And maybe just there, thank you, because this is, we need to start the movement, and this is exactly what we are there for. And if we would like to put science at the center of the future development, we need also checks and balance for science, because not all that science does is ethically correct. And so this is just a thought, it's not a concrete project, but maybe having an international court for arbitration in science, where you can establish a joint code of conduct in which frame science, future science should be conducted and implemented, would maybe be one of the tools that we could come up with, or one of the institutions we would like to see developing, to make sure that we govern and that we frame the development that we take. Because technology will never be the end, will never alone be the solution. Technology is always a necessary but not a sufficient condition. So it's really about the question, how can then these technological developments be embedded in the society that they can be effective?
Wow. Yeah. So this framework, I mean, like you say, there needs to be this framework guided by science, having general mutual consent internationally. I think, and we talked about this a little bit, one of the main obstacles now, or one of the main enemies, challenges, whatever you want to call it, possibly could be social media. Because in the social media bubble, so many people have written about it. We know this is a real thing. Our children are dealing with it with their phones all the time. It's this notion of the manufactured consent, the culture of attention. Give me, just kind of look over here, look over there, and this requires, as you said, looking far into the future. And so what do you think about how are we going to cope with, the challenge of social media as almost like something that's going to be preventing people from almost giving up their individual right to believe whatever the heck they want?
Yep.
Yeah. Unluckily or luckily, I don't have an answer to this question, or we don't have an answer to this question, but I think it will even be augmented, because nowadays we talk about fake news. I think we have deep fake in future, where you cannot differentiate anymore. Is this a person or is this an avatar? Is this real what I'm confronting with, or is this virtual or fake? So I think the question to navigate in these worlds, and this is why coming back to education, I think it's really key that we give a compass, that we make sure that the kids get a compass in life to steer ethical questions, to steer what is right and wrong, because otherwise I think it's a risk that we get a bit lost in this in the digital opportunities we have and the risks that are out there. So I think deep fake will be a topic that will come to us quite soon. We know nowadays that with we are not yet at the general artificial intelligence, but we are going step by step in that direction. We already have computers, algorithms writing poems that are super nice and going down well. We have algorithms writing news, which you don't anymore see if it's fake or if it was a person writing it. So I think a lot will be coming to us. So it's really key going back to the education.
So let's try to this fake news and trolls and whatever happenings out there, and they're creating truths. And I was thinking about and really studying this, how this world now develops in which way. And so before, in the past, you had one truth because everybody was really close to the center of gravity of one truth. Now everything developed and it's connecting outside and taking thousands of millions of other connections, so influenced by other things. And so currently we see these truth bubbles popping out of this, something like it out of the soup, a bubble that just creates their own truth. So this has to happen. It will go on, of course. This is just the beginning, and we need to think about how to deal with it, because we don't want one truth anymore, but we want to have at least a guideline of moral, of ethics and all this. And I'm so happy that you in person, you and your lucky four, as you said, are really working on it. So this is just fantastic. So
maybe just to come back on one of my topics I also have is because you said we are well funded. That's kind of yes, and we're a startup, so we are really a multilateral startup. We got a startup funding from the Swiss government and one private philanthropy organization, but we need really to go out there and prove ourselves. So we are not funded for eternity. We are funded for a period of 3 years, and it's on us to prove to the Swiss government, to prove to the UN system that we can make a difference, because maybe we're just bluffing and then at the end nothing really different is coming out. So we have really a proof of concept phase of 3 years, and then I hope that after this proof of concept phase we can really go into the long-term institutional large-scale operations and funding. At the moment we operate like a startup.
Yeah, well, it's important. I think it's going to be critical how you actually define success, and how, because as you say, there are always going to be the people who say, I want to count beans, I want to measure, whether this is cost effective or whatever it is. And we're talking about an entirely different thing. This is for the betterment of the entire, planet. So I think it's how do you even go about defining what you might call key performance indicators or any of that stuff, that people can actually measure? How do you guys do that?
Well, at the end, we need to come up with concrete solutions. I think it's the do tank. If we stay at the think tank, this is great, but that's not the reason why we were founded. So I think if we cannot come up in 3 years with hints to solutions, probably they will not be super concrete because they take time.
Yeah.
But if we have not leads, 2 to 3 strong leads into solutions, and where we have an uptake in the society, in the governments, in the private sector, in the UN system to work in that direction, then I think we missed to prove that the world was waiting for our initiative. So I think we need to have seeds of solutions planted out there. And if this is possible, then I would say then we call it success.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense, and especially with your name, the Anticipators, is you've got to show that you've anticipated the right thing, but also provided a way to go beyond the anticipation and actually confronting things and with a real sound set of solutions. I love it.
But without a very great scientific anticipation, we're lost. So this is why at the moment we focus fully on getting the mapping right of the future topics, because this is the basis on which to build, and then the next step.
Yeah.
So I've got another comment from Suresh. He says great things about you, Sandro. I'm going to take one of this. For example, Sandro, thank you for mentioning AGI. And AGI, he means Artificial General Intelligence. We must get ready for it. I think.
Yeah, and Suresh is also talking about Singularity. So I'm really not a deep scientist. I'm an economist, a very simple one. But I think this question of Singularity, when you really see the different technologies coming together, the nanotechnology, the biotechnology, the information technology, the cognitive science that is there. If this come together, this is when people talk about singularity, and when the different scientific streams come together into one. I cannot predict when this will be the case. I guess nobody can predict that. But at the end, this is the direction it goes. And we are based in Geneva at the campus Biotech, which is one of the centers of this convergence of the different technological streams. So even though we are a diplomacy actor, we are based in a very scientific environment, which makes a lot of sense for us.
Yeah.
So we are, again, the time is flying. We've got 2 more minutes. I'm seeing a pattern when we are working with organization. If they're on the status quo and we want to change, then they are reactive. So the world is at first like the reptile brain, it's reactive in some way. The first step you have to make is to become responsive, that somebody at least answers by a scaled answer. And then the next step would be being predictive. And this is what you're all talking about. This is this is just a so common and shared pattern that we have here, and we need to continue this discussion. It's just super cool, and you're living very close, so smoky barbecue. So
with pleasure.
And I think we always have a last question.
Yeah, the question we always like to end on is, because we're so grateful for our guests to come on, is we want you to talk about what's your next big thing? Like, what is the next big thing? Not necessarily for your organization, but what are you really going to do next?
As a person?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say.
Whatever you want to talk about.
No, but I think we are just a jester. So I think let's put it into the jester environment. So my task, I'm not the scientist. So I'm the one that needs to make sure that at the end we have a viable business model. That at the end, jest is not just a cool idea and not a cool theoretical concept, but that we are really a practical institution. So my big thing is to make sure that we have these 2 to 3 solutions out there. For sure, not alone. I do this with my colleagues from the diplomacy side, from the science side, from the communication side. But still, I would say I would like to be measured, and I would like to contribute to make this fly and to make this funded. So this will be my big thing to get people engaged in making this happen, and not just be a nice storyline.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm sure you will. And anybody who's watching and all of our community will also be there to help and to make sure that the word is spread and people are aware.
Cool.
So Sandro, thank you for being on the show. It's just fantastic, and it's thought-provoking. It's on again. I don't know how to stop now. I have to think about it. So this is just a great opportunity, not only for you job-wise, I think for humanity. If people are investing in do tanks, not only think tanks, and thinking in that way on this step into the future. So again, thank you.
Thank you a lot. It was
Thanks,
a pleasure.
Sandro. Yeah,
and
hope to see you in person when the time is right.
Let me know when you're around in Zurich, or Geneva.
So, and the Botten and Klumm show is live on Monday and on Thursday, every Monday and every Thursday. We can make it, but I think we can make it at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so 5 p.m. Central European summertime. And we have a fantastic guest, and we will talk about everything that even touches digital, because this is stuff we love. We just love.
Yeah, and we're very grateful to be powered by AXWAY, and we're going to keep bringing this show to all of you, and we're just thrilled to do it.
So, see you next time. See you on Thursday. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.